Hi, everybody. So I know that teachers aren't supposed to have favorites, but I will say that it's been beyond a pleasure to teach Serena how to chart her cycles in my online program, Charting Shakti, because I think we share a very similar sense of humor and that we're both the same level of nerd and spiritual in the way that
Mm.
we love to pay attention to details, but we also know just like not to stress too much over the tiny little things sometimes that happen in our charting practice. So we first met, I think it was around a year ago right now, when you decided to join the program and dive deeper into learning cycle charting with me. So why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself and what were some of the blocks that you were facing when it came to just trying to learn to chart your cycles yourself? Because you had done a lot of self instruction and self learning. And what was it that you really wanted when you decided to join the program?
Okay, so bear with my goldfish memory. So I started, or I was introduced to the fertility awareness method um, about 6, 7 years ago, I would say. Um, just learning more about like how hormones can affect, and I at the time I didn't have a diagnosis for depression yet, but I'm like, my energy is always low, and there's all these things with me that I'm like, I don't feel like people are supposed to live like this day to day. So I got off the
Mm.
pill, and that kind of became the jump start for my exploration. Um, I first came across Emily, I think, fellow femme educator Chloe Skerlack. Is that how you say her last name? Yeah, I
Yes.
think she had post or like had tagged you in an Instagram post, and that's what got me onto your newsletter. I don't remember how I got you exactly, but I remember getting your newsletters, and I remember um, every time they came in, especially with the prompts and everything like that. I loved it
Mm.
because it was such a great incorporation of practicality and going
Mm.
deeper. And
Mhm.
not just looking at or not just challenging like preconceived notions about what you feel like your body should or should not be doing, but it also brought in what I love, the psycho-spiritual components of like take a
Mm.
look at yourself and what these patterns might mean to you. What do they say about
Mhm.
you? Which I love that extra added depth. Now,
Mhm.
at these times, obviously she's just like join my circle or join this retreat, and I'm like, this sounds great. I have spent so much money on fluff. And I I was at this point in my life where I was like, not only was it like I don't want to make a mistake with my money, but I was
Mhm.
also at everyone is charging for everything, whether it be yoga, whether
Mhm.
it be like fertility awareness, nutrition, everything like that. And I'm like, there's so many resources at my fingertips now. We have the whole internet. I don't need to pay money to learn this. I can do this on my own. And I did for a bit because when you're reading a textbook, just like with anything, especially in the health education, um, human beings aren't textbook.
Mhm.
And I had been single for a long time, and I was also wanting to pursue a romantic relationship. And I was like, I am somebody that has coitus pre-marriage. And so
Mhm.
I want to make sure, though, that I don't have a pregnancy that I was not prepared for. So
Mhm.
I was like, I need to tighten up. But what really pushed me over was um, June or July of last year was the Wild Roses Women's Festival, where Emily presented her talk on what did you call it? Sacred
I called it blood prayers.
blood prayers.
It was all
Yes.
about holistic supports and, like, plant-based options for abortions and for ending a pregnancy with dignity and honor for our body. Yeah.
And that's she's putting it so simply, you guys. It was such an amazing presentation because, and this is okay, actually I wrote it down because it popped into my head once on like if it, I think about this all the time because I'm surrounded by women, and I'm like, don't preach to them, but like doesn't hurt to encourage. But this
Mhm.
was one of the things that I loved about Emily that made me connect with her so much. It, like she said, how we're similar in so many ways is, I would describe Emily as a hippie at heart, but her delivery is warm and fun, but she doesn't cut past the bullshit. She opens the discussion about why it is BS. And
Mhm.
that was demonstrated so well in a very sensitive topic, whether you support abortion or termination of pregnancy or
Mhm.
not. It's still a sensitive topic. And it was delivered so respectfully, so like it blew my mind, not even realizing these preconceived ideas that we had as society, that we just don't even question. And I'm like, this is a woman that knows her stuff because she's like very well educated, um, but also brings in that spirituality, which I very much have a space for, not a space for, a reverence space for
Mhm.
in my life of how I treat my body, especially my womb. Um, it's just been part of my life journey is
Mhm.
reclaiming my relationship with being a woman in modern
Mhm.
day and realizing just how this is at that time realizing how important um, sexual reproductive health is in both
Mhm.
a practical physical sense and as a spiritual holistic sense. And
Mhm.
now I'm saying this and I laugh at myself because I'm like, girl, you're going to get your mind blown so many more times.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah, after that, I was like, this is someone I want to work with. And
Mm.
I also knew that it would be like I was realizing these gaps that I had. The fact that I need to be more confident in my birth control practice if I were to get into a romantic relationship. But I also wanted to know how to develop this relationship with my body in a spiritual, loving way and in a practical
Mhm.
way. Always a practical. I
Mhm.
mean, but ev you have a bio class, a sex ed class. It'll always be a physical, practical way.
Mhm.
Thing I loved about Emily is she added in that little extra, which made
Mm.
it very, very cushy all around, which I loved.
Yeah.
And so yeah, when you sent out that newsletter being like, "Hey, it's this," and I'm like, "Well, I know what I'm getting myself into now. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do
Mm.
it." And I'm so
Mhm.
glad. I'm so glad that I did. I didn't even
Mm.
know what I wasn't knowing.
Mm. Oh, yeah. Let's pause there. I love that sentence. And I feel like that's something I would love to dig deeper into with you because I saw that in you as a student that entered the program. And that's something that, as you kind of said, it's like sometimes difficult to enlighten people to see that you don't even know what you don't know when you are relying totally and completely on self-teaching fertility awareness method, especially like you said, if your intention is to avoid pregnancy until you have that space and you're at the right moment in your life where you really intentionally want to conceive a child, at a time that you are planning on purpose. You're not someone who wants to half ass it and just be like, well, if I get pregnant, it's meant to be and I'm going to go with it, which is a beautiful place to be in life. But if you're someone who's serious about needing to or wanting to avoid pregnancy right now, we don't always know what we don't know when it comes to charting our cycles for contraception. And by the way, thank you for that beautiful introduction of yourself. I feel like it was just like a beautiful little flattery towards me in so many ways. So I appreciate that.
There's more coming. There's more coming.
But we want to hear about you. We want to hear about your journey and your experience and your story, even though, I love, receiving compliments and such. But, if we can really distill it down to what I heard you say was that you went through your own process with your mental health and depression, and recognizing I'm not just supposed to feel this way, and like maybe taking birth control is contributing to that, or definitely not helping my mental health, right? And so stopping birth control, being aware of fertility awareness method and charting your cervical mucus and your basal body temperature, and you knew, right, that it was something you can use to avoid pregnancy, that it was something that people use to help understand their hormones and how their body changes and all this and that. And you had done some self-instructing. I remember when you and I met on our first Zoom call, you were very much like, I chart. I chart. I know what I'm doing over here. And so you still had that desire to step into the program. So even though now you can look back and see practically all the things that you were missing, tell me more so, like, just from that lived experience, that emotional sense. What made you feel like you needed to step in and learn more? What was like the sense you had on maybe this, despite, like you said, I loved what you said about, like, I had just, spent my money on so much fluff when it comes to the self development or kind of like spiritual world, and you don't always feel like you get, the bang for your buck that you thought you would. So I can totally relate to that, like, natural hesitancy between like someone else trying to sell me a program, when like maybe chat gpt can teach me, you know what I mean, I can just buy a book and figure it out myself. So what was like, rather than the details of what you were missing, what was the felt sense of like what you felt like you were missing that made you want to step in and learn more with me?
I love that you said that because I did go to ChatGPT to help me just before I hopped on with you. Yeah, so the space, it'll be easiest if I go for the spaces of what I was missing. Um, so where I had ended up, and that's one of the things that you had mentioned in the workshop presentation at the
Mhm.
festival, that I was like, "Oh, I'm missing a whole other component of this," is like my tracking. I didn't really get the fluid bit. So like I said,
The
I had been
cervical mucus.
yes, cervical mucus, yes. Like I said, at this point, I had already been following Chloe. And so and I didn't ever meet her in person, but I had gone to one of her circles where another one of her, I guess, practitioners from the Justice School was like mentoring under her. Um,
Mhm.
I got the whole package. I got the nice package and the nice little booklet, and I was still like, yeah, I don't think it's that important. I think my temperature is taking my temperature is good enough. I think tracking my cycle days is good enough. I actually went to the length. Actually, I remember when I had just started with you, I had done a few months with the LH test strips.
Mhm.
Um, and then Chat GPT for like some more
Yeah.
clarification. Now I'm like, the BBT really useful as a comparison to kind of understand where I am. However, that cervical mucus is that's key. It's really key.
Queen, it's the
It is the
top one.
queen.
What you're saying is so important, because the reason you overemphasized and thought that LH tests and ovulation P tests and taking your temperature were so important is because that's really sold and marketed in modern kind of Frankenstein versions of fertility awareness method, because it's so easy to sell. It's so
Mhm.
easy to sell digital thermometer with a paired app that kind of promises that it's going to solve this big problem for you, because you cannot package and commodify a personal intimacy with your vaginal fluids, right? Like, that is something that requires your own body education and your own time to really get to know your body and tune in those ways, right? So it's like, as I heard you say that, I feel like that's so common out there, that people seem to think that basal body temperature, buying LH test is the most important aspect of it, when now those are secondary, right, to the
There.
importance of fluid.
And I
Mhm.
love that you said that too, because that was kind of part of when I was referring to the piece that you said at the festival that made me be like, I might not have all the pieces of this puzzle together, was when you said we call it the menstrual cycle, but really we have an ovulatory cycle
Mhm,
because the important component isn't the bleed because you get a bleed when you're on the pill. The important part is the ovulation. And here's the thing, your BBT will indicate things. Your LH strips will indicate things while you're on hormones and stuff like that, but nothing really tells you what your body's doing and how she's going about life, especially this is jumping a bit into being in the program, but for those who are watching, I had an extremely high stressful situation where I developed panic disorder, and watching how my body reacted to it was fascinating, but also it was, an anchor point to myself throughout that entire time of going through the practice of checking my cervical mucus, and I'm starting to get I'm starting to start to get into the habit of also checking my cervical position and stuff like that,
mhm,
but at the very least, it's just when you I never did the app thing, but
mhm,
I can see very easily how it's one more way in which capitalism is creating robots out of us basically instead of us coming back to we're human, and there's a very unique experience with being human, and every psychologist, psychiatrist, brain shrink out there will tell you everything that deeply moves you, which is why the spiritual aspect of this practice I love, is because
mhm,
anything that you're unsettled with in here will never be found out there. And I find
mhm,
that, like you were saying, here's another thing to solve your problem, when the
mhm.
real way to solve this problem is to get in touch with yourself again.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and for so many people, that getting in touch with themselves is that missing piece of, like, body education, right? Like, grounded body literacy that isn't just an app thinking that it knows anything about your body. Like, I always kind of can't help but giggle when people are like, "I'm super in tune with myself because of my app." Yeah, where am I at? What's going on in my body? Let me go grab my phone from the kitchen table over there and ask it what's going on in my body today and give me the predictions of how I'm supposed to be feeling since I'm on cycle day 24. When it's like, well, oh my goodness, put your phone down and get familiar with what's happening between your legs today, girlfriend, and
Mhm.
feel into your heart.
Yep.
And let's see how you're feeling today, right now, on cycle day 24, right?
Yep.
And even when you say the spiritual aspects of the program and the way that I teach cycle charting is we have the data, we have the science, we have the details, we have the charting, we have all of that. But remembering that we're not just trying to extract data points from our body to kind of like know our fertile status and then go to our partners and still completely be using our cycle charting as a way to live neck up, right? In our bodies as women, but rather be like, yeah, another word that we could even say, instead of spiritual is like primal. Uh,
Yes, I like that.
primal in the sense that it's like we are mammals, we are animals, and we make this it's animalistic. It's like we are mammals that make this sperm food, this fertile fluid, this sex juice called cervical mucus, right? And really appreciating and understanding like all the physiological ways that our body shifts and changes to drive towards, as you said, that main moment of the cycle of ovulation, and really letting the practice of charting be an embodiment journey that's below the neck, where we also feel
Yes.
like a deeper sense of yeah, like our physical sensations and our emotional states of change, while also being very concrete and objective and specific, right? With the rules and the guidelines of how we're understanding what these beautiful fluid juices of cervical mucus tell us about when
Mm.
we are fertile and when we're not, right? It's all about bringing all of that together. So I love, 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 hearing you kind of jam and talk about that and recognize that, like, yeah, the apps aren't really the way to go with all of this. So I'm so glad you joined the program. I feel like you've gotten so much out of it. You've been like an A plus top notch student in the sense of like, you're charting your cycles, right? Like you're charting your cycles really well. You're getting lots of information on the paper. You're really understanding what's going on. Even on one of our calls last week, where you had a bit of a tricky cycle and
Oh
things
yeah.
weren't perfect, I was like, you nailed it, girl. Like you interpreted everything correctly. And even though things were a bit wonky, like I see that you understood everything in the right way. You knew how to identify when you were fertile, when you weren't, etc., which is so special. So I would love to hear from you. How would you describe the experience of learning with me in the online learning portal in the program? How's it been? The
It
actual community vibe, recorded, watching the modules, etc.
it's such an interesting journey because the actual wisdom and knowledge just working its way is so subtle. And this is not like a high intensive course. Like it is very much learn at your own pace. There's so much breathing room, but also like the content is very bite-sized but very interesting. I love them. So like you want to learn more. Especially because like it's not the kind that you just sit. I mean, you can sit back and watch, but I mean, every module you're like, I can put this into practice now. It's not
Mhm,
completely passive.
mhm.
So you're excited to put things into practice. As I tell you over and over again, I love our in calls as a group, our sharing
The live
circles.
calls, yeah.
And I can't stress this. If I were to tell anybody, I'll be like, like prioritize at least one. You have to prioritize at least one a month because that's where the integration really is. Because I will promise you, at some point, if you don't already have a wonky cycle, because some womb mins do have wonky cycles,
Mhm,
you will get one at some point.
mhm.
I am blessed to have a very what do you call it, very stable cycle, which is why I was able to get so far with the self
Yeah.
learning. But wow, my brain has been blown over and over and over again with all the things that I have learned. And I'm 33 years old and I never really paid much attention to things like menopause until I have another
Mm.
fellow creatrix right beside me in the chat being like, hey, this is what I'm going through. And I'm like, wait, what's happening? Wait, wait, what the, I didn't know. And it's just learning so much. And that it's exciting for me too, because I've had a lot of coworkers and friends, a lot of the time are actually older than me, and they're starting
Mhm,
to get into their
mhm,
perimenopausal journey.
mhm,
And normally I would have been like, this isn't for you. Like you're ending your cycle. You don't need, no, bruh, you need this. And the exciting thing is like this is for everyone, everyone,
mhm,
whether you have a womb or not, whether you have an active cycle or not. The the wisdom that you learn through this, if not for yourself, there's someone who definitely needs to hear it, because there's so much information that is taught opposite in
mhm,
schools that
mhm,
is missed completely in everyday
mhm,
conversations. And
mhm,
there are a lot of like fun tips and tricks that, oh my gosh. I mean, I still haven't tried it, but like I would love to try yoni steaming.
mhm.
Like, especially if I'm having one of those months where I'm like, oh, she's going to be mad at me.
Yeah.
I feel like that will be so soothing for us both.
Mhm.
uh,
Totally.
but what else? There. Oh my goodness. I do love that the platform circle, how it's set up, is extremely intuitive, and if it's not,
Mm.
um, you're so easily accessible.
Mm. You
Oh,
mean
that's it.
me? Yeah?
Yes,
I'm yeah.
you are. Emily is easily
Yeah.
accessible, but that does remind me, talking about like support and everything like that. Once again, coming back to those chat circles. I mean, on the platform itself, there's quite a bit of community there, but it's in
Mhm.
that circle that, oh my god, like you're being an example. I just feel like we're soul best friends because we've been on so many calls together. But
Mhm.
then there's also Danielle or Daniela.
Mhm.
That's just, it's it just makes my heart so happy whenever I see these
Mhm.
faces. And then when you start seeing new ones come in, like just
Mhm.
the last call, I love it. Every time they come in, the first thing they're like, my chart looks pathetic.
Yeah.
And that's that's where you realize how far you've come. Because then
Mhm.
you flip back to that very first chart and you're like, oh, I really didn't know anything. And then you come back to this chart and it's like you have a PhD in science. Like
Oh,
it's just
yeah.
like, oh my gosh, there's so many things that I'm taking note of. The coding is not so much accurate because I think I was accurate with the coding, but more precise. That's the word I would use.
Mhm.
Is more precise. You get a lot more information from it. Oh, it's so satisfying to see months and months of charting and start to see a
Mhm.
pattern show
Mhm.
up. Um, oh, but it's just I cannot stress how amazing it is to be surrounded by like-minded women who are on the same journey but different,
Yeah.
and you learn so much even just for yourself or big picture for just knowing about the female body in general. Fun fact, there is actually a standard for which to measure flow with,
Yeah.
which for me, I was like, I'm sorry, someone can have a heavier flow than me.
Yeah.
My flow is on the lower spectrum, but I'm bleeding
Ooh.
so much. Like you learn these things that just blow your mind
Yeah.
because they're conversations that either, like I said, are misinformed in our society, aren't talked about in our society, or we don't know what we don't know.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, this entire journey, like I said, it's not high tense cram session that you guarantee have to do every week. So it's very subtle, but the implications they have on my day-to-day life, like I was telling Emily this last circle, here I am going through lovely anxiety attacks where I can hardly function in my day-to-day life.
Mhm.
Can I stop myself from wiping and checking my cervical mucus? Not if I tried.
Yeah. I know, I loved you sharing about that, that you were like, "All these things in my life are kind of falling apart, but I still chart my cycle." Like, I still chart my cycle, it's like a grounding practice, right? That, like, roots you into your body, which is so amazing, and I just loved hearing you talk about, like, how much we learn when we learn in community, which is
Mhm.
once again so different than learning from a book. Like even if someone has a pretty textbook-ish cycle and they're able to kind of like get some of the basics of charting down themselves, it's the brilliance of another sister student saying, "Well, what about this?" And you're like, "Oh my gosh, that's such a good question about like a specific kind of situation that I would have never thought of. And now I get to learn because of her genius, inquisitive mind that wanted to ask about that, or I'm seeing this person's chart that is irregular, and because of that, that's helping prepare me to answer questions for when or maybe if I then experience an irregular cycle." And I think it's really cool that in our online community, our age range is like literally early, right now at least, it's literally early 20s. Like I think our youngest is 21, all the way
Oh,
up to late 50s. That's amazing, you know what I
I
mean?
love
Like,
that.
and it's pretty spaced out evenly, right, between everybody. It's not like then everyone's clumped in the middle in their 30s. It's like it's pretty evenly spaced out, so it's so cool for the young maidens in their early mid-20s to be able to, like, reflect and learn from not only the charting, but like you said, like, the human aspect of, the relationship with their fertility, whether they're having kids or not, like, the attunement to the body, getting to learn from the women in their 30s and 40s, right? And then you also getting to hear about the people's experience in the late times of perimenopause and what their cycles and charting looks like with all of that. So, you know, I remember hearing this from somebody and it was so funny. They were like, one of the worst things you can sell is preventative wellness. Like, it's one of the hardest things to sell in the sense that people aren't really motivated to get out ahead of things. But I think that we need to give more credit to like the chutzpah of women that actually want to get empowered with body literacy. And it's like, well, let's put this out there in the world. And I think that you might find that more people with cycles are actually super hungry for cycle literacy, just to know themselves and connect to themselves and feel well. Not everyone wants to wait until they're like, smack up against a wall with a big problem before they want to reflect and now feel like it's important to learn about their womb health, right? So I just love
Mhm.
also that on our group calls, everyone just gets to have that like deeper, enhanced next level of learning by hearing about other people's experiences and hearing other people's questions, which is so great, which I
Can
love that.
I can I tell you my dream for Muja Moon?
Tell me the dream you have for me. Yes, please.
My dream is that one day in the near future, you will have multiple 3 generations on a sharing circle set, like,
Mm,
the 9-month program or however your programs
yeah.
develop, where you have the grandmother, the mom, and the daughter all on because it's we've been saying this whole time, it's not just important for your own health, it's also important for the health. Like, this knowledge is important for every cycle carrying person out
Mhm.
there to know about and to pass on because as you were saying, um that disconnection and bringing in that body literacy and not like I love that the tides are changing and I'm so excited for the 20-year-old that's coming in because I'm like get into this early, but that's why I think it's starting to shift a lot for women of all ages right now is because we're seeing that that's been a failure of the scientific and health
Mhm.
community is that they haven't been doing tests on women. They haven't been looking at things properly when it comes to women's health. And here we are having women who are developing PCOS, which is usually misdiagnosed, if not completely put to the side, not even considered, even though it is the
Mhm.
most common undiagnosed
Mm.
condition for women. Endometriosis, my sister wanted to get screened for it, and the doctor said, "We don't do that unless you're showing symptoms." And I'm like, but here's the thing though, is that these women that are having all these issues with their cycle, with their womb, or I shouldn't say women, these people, um,
Mhm.
they're the ones that hate it the most. They have such
Mhm.
an angry uh, disconnected, just a very negative relationship with their body,
Mhm.
specifically their womb, and it's really sad. And I remember when I first started this journey, um, I mean, I grew up, I grew up like most Albertans in a very Christian like environment, and you get your period, and every time you start having cramps, it's like, oh, the curse. This is the curse of being a woman, and also just hey, when I moved out of Christianity because my mom, I was raised Christian
Mhm.
because of my mom. I moved into witchcraft, which very
Mhm.
nature based, which is what I loved about it, and through that opened doors to feminine empowerment. That's how I came to like, oh, there are some really cool things going on with being a womb man,
Yeah.
WOMB. And when I started practicing the exact same thing, same way as when we had this conversation last time, how my seasonal effectiveness disorder changed and became more bearable. And in fact, I embraced the season was because I started to understand the blessings in the season. So too did I understand even the darkest blessing in the blood of
Mhm.
my own
Mhm.
womb with my own seasons. And I just really, really want to give that to these poor people out there who are suffering with every single period. And here's the thing, when I started embracing my menstrual time, my cramps lightened like crazy
Mm.
because I was giving
Yeah.
space. And there's that practical aspect of it, but then there's a psycho-spiritual aspect of it too, of processing
Mhm.
what the month just brought you, or the couple
Mhm.
months if you've had time.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
just, it's a gift that I really want to see given to more and
Mhm.
more um, people with wombs out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Ah, thank you for sharing all of that. I feel like that was just such a beautiful reflection piece of like that bigger arc that you've experienced of learning cycle tracking and learning more about your womb body and how much love she needs and how much love she wants to receive when we pour into this part of ourself that we've been told. And you and I, similar upbringings where we've been told to not talk about it, to feel ashamed of it, to silence it, and to really feel like this is the curse that has been put upon you as a woman, right? Like to be a woman is to suffer, right? And to realize that we can completely flip that on its head and reclaim this reproductive continuum as this guide to connect more deeply to like the cycles that we admire and love outside of us and around us. That's happening within us, and we can learn to work with them, right? And then we see the way that our
Mhm.
body responds with more balance and more peace and love right back to us when we stop and really tend to the womb. And I just love hearing you say that you really found like the gifts in the darkness of your blood. That's so special. That's so special.
Putting that on
And
a
I
shirt,
just
man.
yeah, totally. I just have a couple more questions for you,
Yes.
which is, um, what has been your biggest takeaway? What has been your biggest takeaway when you think about who you were a year ago, already having learned a bit about your cycle, already kind of thinking you were cycle tracking, versus to where you are today? What's been your biggest takeaway?
I cannot put this in short words, so I'm not gonna try to. Um, if I could talk to me back then, sorry, I felt this and now I'm just trying to put this in words.
Take your
Uh,
time.
I would tell her, "You weren't wrong. You weren't wrong in being cautious. You weren't wrong in wanting to make sure you were investing in something correctly, and you weren't wrong in your timing." Like, I'm
Mm,
glad that you, especially since I had that nice hiccup, I'm glad that I had a lot of foundation to then go off of, although not needed at all. It just everything worked out well for me, but girl, not not only it just comes back to you just don't know what you don't know. And working with someone who is knowledgeable, um, very open and accessible and supportive, and being surrounded by more people as you go through this. Because I would highly recommend, like, how do I say this? It's so important to have a leader, but as we've already talked about, having this community is the whole package. It's the whole package that gets you so far. No amount of self-learning was ever gonna get me there. And
mm,
I think what I learned the most from this was just the confidence to understand what's going on with me. Like, and that's kind of like the word is confidence. I have confidence in my body. I have confidence in how I track. I am probably still going to go through the oh crap moment when I'm like, okay, I am having sexual encounters with my romantic partner now. Did I do something wrong? Am I pregnant now?
yeah.
I think that's just a natural thing that's going to happen. But and once again, I've seen it with my fellow sisters is you can do this like me before you get into a relationship. You can do this when you're in a relationship at any point. But I'm so glad that I had the space to learn without being that scared
Mhm,
because it would have been scary with that added hormonal pressure.
mhm,
Um, that I feel like I know myself. Yeah, I think that's where it comes from. I know myself so well that I'm confident in my sexual reproductive health and my primal relationship with
mm.
my womb.
Yeah. Ooh, chills, chills. I love hearing you say that. And yeah, totally just to validate what you said, of course, I want to honor that you do feel so confident. And even rather than being scared, here I am like giving you coaching on this like interview call, which is like rather than being scared, when we actually then like put fertility awareness method to the test and are sexually active, unprotected with a partner, it's more like, ooh, what's the excitement here? that I'm feeling,
Curious.
like the nerves and the excitement I'm feeling now that I actually get to have my mind blown
Mhm,
that
mhm.
sperm in my body doesn't always equal pregnancy. And it's like, shit, oh my God, this does work because you're at a point now where you are charting so perfectly. You know what I mean? Like, think about all the times that you've come to calls where I've been like, yup, you got it. Yup, you got it. Yup, you're on it. And now you get to bring this embodiment of your connection with your womb and your cycle and yourself and your emotional awareness and your attunement to your inner seasons. You get to bring this to dating. You get to bring this to a
Mm,
relationship. And it's going to be cool to actually be able to apply this, right? And one thing that is an interesting part of this conversation is sometimes if I tell people, yeah, I teach cycle charting for contraception that people can use for highly reliable ways to avoid pregnancy. People sometimes have that idea of like, oh, well, that's really cool, but there's so much more to it, the health, the connection to yourself. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're preaching to the choir. You don't need to explain to me. It's like a triangle. And the
yeah,
triangle is body literacy basics, the inner seasons of the cycle, charting for health and wellness, charting to understand your attunement to your hormones and to support hormone health. The top of it is to be able to avoid pregnancy. Because if you can chart, I'd be curious to know if you agree with this. If you can chart to avoid pregnancy, it means you can chart for everything below that.
yeah,
But charting for things below that, like understanding if you have a cycle that's irregular, a little bit off, charting to see if your hormones are balanced, charting to really know what's going on in your body when you're going through changes. All of that doesn't guarantee that you know the how to apply all of that to feel 100% confident with safe actions and choices that align with whether you want to have a pregnancy right now or not.
mhm,
So it's like when I say I teach charting for conscious contraception, it means I teach cycle charting for everything because we'll
yeah.
take you to the full max edge of
Oh, yeah.
details, and then you can kind of scale back and relax on things sometimes depending on where you're at in your life and what your intentions with your cycle charting is. So you had
Ooh,
said when in your sharing, no amount of self teaching would have gotten me there.
yeah.
Is the there the confidence word you were repeating, or is there anything else you would add to the what is the definition of there when you said no amount of self-teaching would have gotten me there?
Yeah, it's more than confidence. It's the understanding, it's the knowledge that I can then share to others. It's the experience. It's the experience of understanding. Once again, you don't know what you don't know. I would have never known how being in community with others, how going through these modules and having you there for me to be like, "Hey, this cycle got weird." Or something that we've been exploring this entire time and I'm starting to like really understand is okay, this is our rubric for what menstruation looks like. How is that showing up in mine? And let's put it
Mhm,
into not only words, but also, okay, so we know very light days, we need to finger test it. What does that look like for me? Is that
mhm,
actually a thing that I can do type deal? Like that never would have come up. Like it's
mhm,
not just knowledge, it's experience. The whole
mhm,
experience of being supported, of learning, of seeing myself reflected or completely different from a fellow sister.
mhm,
Like
mhm,
it is a confidence, it is knowledge, experience. I would also say, ooh, right. You had said something that I really loved. Oh yeah, when you were talking about fear versus excitement and
mhm,
curiosity, I want to emphasize that because getting off the pill, I felt that, but once again, I feel it even more is that excitement I feel comes from this sense of freedom that is both an opportunity for so much good, but we're so used to having our training wheels on. It's scary. But
mhm,
in getting that confidence to ride the bike without the training wheels, you just fly. And that's where I feel like I'm
mhm,
at, where there's still so much for me to learn. There's still so much to practice. I could literally do the at learning with you, because that's the other thing I would need to point out. That was what else I wanted to point out about going through this, is that Emily doesn't stop with what she's just put out. She keeps putting out more and refining it and making it
Mm,
and improving it. And you can see it. And I love that. I love that so much because you're not like
mm.
one and done, I'm done. It's like, no,
Yeah,
let's keep up with
yeah,
anything that you're like, ooh, that's a good thing that I should speak to. So like I could keep learning with you forever.
yeah.
But where I'm at now, that being said, where I'm at now, I feel like I don't need you to hold the back of my bike seat anymore. Like I can
Mm,
ride it, and I would say that being in a sexual relationship with someone is just me on new terrain, where it's like
mhm,
I know I can ride the bike. I just
mhm,
have to be excited and curious about how is my bike going to move in
mhm,
this different terrain, as
mhm.
opposed to being like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die, because it's not. You're just, it's something new. And
Yeah.
I know that from I love this analogy that just popped in my head, but I think about
Totally, me too. I always use the analogy of dental hygiene and brushing your teeth as a habit with fertility awareness method, where like you do that every day and it's not your whole personality. It doesn't take up a million hours a day. It's just a quick thing you do that you know supports your health and wellness, right? And it's like, but I
yeah,
love this thing you're talking about with bike riding. It's like you
yeah.
need someone to hold and help you and take the training wheels off and be there beside you, but then eventually you're like, I know how to ride my bike, and it's just like riding a bike. And I would even say it's natural when people recognize that they're making a lifelong investment in
I
their
agree.
wellness to understand how to chart their cycles. Doesn't mean you're going to chart every single day between now and the day that you're completely menopausal. I've had months that I've taken off of charting because of all of the normal human reasons that we might do that, moving, traveling, health things, where it just was better to kind of take it off the plate. But it's just like riding a bike. Hey, it's like
Yeah.
you can't unknow it. Then the moment that I was ready and settled in my new place after traveling to get back to charting, it was like, yep, take out my thermometer, put it on the bedside tent, bed nightstand, and right back at it. You don't forget it
No.
when you learn it properly, right? What were you going to say
Yes.
before I went on that tangent?
Oh, just that, like, as a mountain bike person, they have that moment too, but now they feel that flyingness. They're so
Mm,
confident in it. And that's why I'm like, I love this analogy. It's actually very applicable, because that's kind of how that if I had to sum up the journey in one analogy, I would give the bike riding analogy, because
mhm.
that was perfect. And yeah, and also it's easier than brushing your teeth according to my body.
Yeah, totally. Me too.
Because
Me
I will
too.
forget to do, well, I wouldn't forget. I
Yeah.
got 2 points where I would skip the evening one, but man, I'm wiping, I'm looking,
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh,
Yeah. Yeah.
pain.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. This is the perfect segue into my last question, which is, what are you looking forward to next on Serena's journey? Now that you've done charting Shakti and you know how to chart your cycles, and you're glad that made the step and that it wasn't just another fluff waste
Not
of
at
your
all.
time and resources on, another silly program. What are you looking forward to next as you like take this forward?
Definitely not stopping with the newsletters and everything. Um, that's a great question, because it's like, I know I mean, I still don't have a romantic partner, but um I am excited to go through all of that. Honestly, just the rest of my life, and especially in this aspect of it, to see how, like, all the things I've learned from all the older sisters that I've had, or just all of them, and just seeing once again how this practice is going to show up for me as I go through all these different stages in life.
Mhm.
Um, that's a really good question. It's such an,
Mhm.
but I'm hard at doing anything past abstract futures. That is like, I just know that I'm going to continue to be very inspired by all of this.
Mm,
It's
mhm,
like you said, like we both said, is like it just becomes second nature to you. But I'm
mhm,
really excited because there's still so much of my life to experience with my
mhm.
cycles, that I'm just curious. I'm just curious about how it's going to continue to show up for me. I'm really curious about all the primal ways. I love that you use that word. I'm gonna steal it forever. But I love all the primal ways that you incorporate um, cycle health
Mhm.
and just being a woman and the seasons and everything like that, like the different retreats you have. That yeah, I'm hoping to be inspired. I'm hoping to still stay very much part of the community because
Mhm.
it's oh, that's another thing that's really good that helps after you've graduated from the program, but that you do during the program is how nice those calls actually are as a reminder. Kind of becomes like church in a way. It's a
Mm.
moment to just come back to yourself and check in regardless of how
Mhm.
crazy your life is, and I've
Mhm.
actually come to really, really appreciate it, even if though there was
Mhm.
a bit of time where I wasn't able to show up to them. I missed it. And coming
Mhm.
back to it, like that's one of the things now that if I were to think about not doing the program anymore, is it's like it is a moment to just come back to yourself.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that, I love that. Ooh, I love all the sharing that yeah, like you said, like, once we know how to chart, we just can feel so much more excited for, like, how will this continue to support me in my life? Like, what is this gonna look like when I get to apply this to romantic intimacy in a serious relationship? Yeah, how is this gonna support me through pregnancy and,
Yeah.
postpartum and perimenopause and all the things, so yay. Thank you so much for being open about your journey and sharing with us so many things that, so many people would normally never hear about another person's life, another woman's experience with her body and womb, because that's so much of the work that we do, right? It's about remembering that restoring and being out in the open with these experiences means that other people get to learn from us. It means that we all normalize what it means as women to come together and talk about like an incredibly central part of our experience in this
Incredibly.
lifetime of being in bodies with wombs. So, thank you so much for being open and honest and vulnerable and sharing with everybody your experience about learning with me.
Always happy to. If may I do a little thing where
Yeah.
if I were to tell someone watching this who is on the fence about doing it, aside from just do it, um, I would say you really, I really want to hit home. You don't know what you don't know. And I can promise
Mm,
you that you're never going to find that on your own. I can't speak for other options out there, but working with Emily, like I said, so much fun, so much knowledge, it and just so much depth that
mm,
you won't regret it. You will not
mm,
regret it, and it's such a huge investment for yourself that you need.
mm,
You
mhm,
100% need. So I
mm.
beyond 10 out of 10, 100,001 out of 10 recommend this program. And I really, really hope that whoever's on the fence dives into it because we need this in the world. And for
Mm,
every one of us that joins in, it just makes the world a better place. It makes
yeah.
each one of us a better person.
Mhm, mhm. Aw, thank you so much.
I hope that helped.